After marketing your property successfully at the right price and carrying out opens on weekends and after hours, ensuring all the best applicants in your market area are in a position to apply, you need to know that you're also going to have all the worst potential tenants apply as well. Now, most bad applications are actually going to be pretty easy to spot, and because of this, your exposure to risk with these applicants is actually going to be quite minimal. So most of the time when I see landlords have got themselves into trouble with these kinds of applicants turned tenants is when they actually engage an agency where staff either don't carry out enough due diligence or potentially the staff's workload can be unsustainable. This means corners end up getting cut. Or it can also be because the property was overreaching on rent and the landlord was told what they want to hear, but not what they really should have been needing to hear. So getting back on track, most bad applications are actually pretty easy to spot if you follow a consistent process, because between how applicants present, their lack of references, and even things as simple as, that they had applied for a property that they clearly couldn't afford based on their income. Now, not all bad applications are going to be from people who want to trash your house. Some appear to be very nice people, but if they can't pay rent, then I would say that this is a bad application, as they should never be put into a property that they can't afford in the first place. So, given these bad applications are easy to spot when you have a thorough process in place, you can now decline the application before they become a tenant, and that is that. And while I can hear some of you thinking that, well, if they're really, really easy to spot, why does the process need to be so thorough? Well, when I've taken on and helped new landlords who have either self-managed or their previous property manager has put this kind of tenant into their property, the level of damage that is caused is actually quite significant still. You see, the actual process to deal with the average bad tenant is, it's relatively easy for our team to deal with. But the ones you also need to be concerned with is the intelligent and also quite fraudulent applications. So they know the system and they have several tactics for delaying the eviction process. And you can even find stories of them, if you Google Today Tonight, and you possibly see them on other similar nighttime news TV shows. But when you speak to landlords that put these people into their properties thinking they found the golden goose, it was because they dressed well, they presented well. When they came to the inspection, they asked questions that were pretty engaging. They left the property manager, or in most cases the self-managing landlord, with a great first impression. They will have appeared at face value to have looked like they had good income and stable rental history, again, at face value on their application. But they will also have a great story that explains most of their really concerning red flags. But once the landlord has these types of tenants and puts them into the property, it'll be trashed, and their rent won't be paid past the initial 1 or 2 weeks rent that they paid to be able to get the keys. So now I can forgive a private landlord for not picking up on these types of applications, as firstly, they don't have the same resources as a well-equipped property manager. But these types of tenants getting into a property is actually very predictable when you look at the application, or should I say it's quite avoidable, because you can actually see the red flags. Now, if you stick to a proven screening process that leaves no stone unturned, it'll be very avoidable. But because some of the most common fraudulent behaviours is, work references and private landlord references that are actually in fact not the employer or the landlord, they normally are going to be targeting properties that are overpriced or properties that have been vacant for extended periods of time, where a landlord or a property manager is more likely to be susceptible to overlook 1 or 2 gaps in their application. Now, there are other ways that these applicants can be misleading, and we're very good at picking up on these types of applications, but if there's ever a doubt, it's just better to decline it, okay? Decline the application, move on. Better than taking a chance on if it's going to work out. And to be completely honest, some of the more advanced tactics that we've seen and avoided, I actually don't want to put out into a public space, where these types of people and other people are thinking about using these types of behaviours, can improve how they try to conceal their suitability and their history. Because just by knowing that property management professionals know about these behaviours and these tactics means that they'll continue to work on them and have other tactics, or should I say move on to other tactics that possibly we're still having to see develop in the industry. So we can see lots of private landlords stop self-managing because of these types of tenants, and again, the fraudulent ones are the ones that are more difficult to deal with. But because when a property manager or a private landlord is not equipped to deal with this, because they don't have the right tools and they're not trained correctly as to what to look for, then these applications will often look like great tenants, and they'll just as often leave with thousands of dollars of rent owing and damages as well. So for this very reason, at our agency, your approved applicant will have been screened thoroughly. We will then review the verified information as part of our risk assessment that has 2 sets of eyes on your application, because again, we want to allow for human error and make sure that we minimize that as much as possible. Normally the 2 staff members includes myself reviewing the application and going through, what have they said? What have they put into their application? What have we been able to verify? And, what has our background research been able to identify as well? So, we even screen your tenancy across 2 separate databases before they're approved. And, from there, only then can we actually put the applications forward to you as the owner with a recommendation about the applicants. And while it's your property and you always get to make the final call, we're always going to give you our recommendation of what we would do if we were putting someone into our own property. So I'm Ricky from Real People Real Estate. If you've enjoyed this video, please like it and share us. Subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and don't forget to comment below about what topics you'd like us to discuss next.